Hi guys, welcome to Guilty Nightmares. Today I'm going to tell you three scary true horror stories of home invasions and how they were caught. Story number one, The Man Under the Bed. A young woman named Lisa moved into her first apartment in a quiet neighborhood. She used to work until late at night as she was a bartender, and she would often come home after midnight, but she would always lock her door before leaving. But the building itself was old and some of her windows in her apartment did not latch properly. On a cold Thursday night, Lisa got home around 1 a.m. She was tired, so she left the hallway light on and walked straight into her dark bedroom, thrown her purse onto the floor and changed into a shirt and climbed into bed. But as she lay there, she started to notice a faint rustling sound like fabric brushing against something. She thought maybe it was the heat turning on, but then she realized the heat wasn't running, and everything was dead quiet except for a soft, uneven breathing. Lisa tried to figure out what the sound was. She thought maybe she left the window open and the sound was coming from outside, but she could not shake the feeling that someone or something was inside her room with her. Her heart started pounding as she lay listening. She realized the sound was coming from under her bed. She was too afraid to move and look under her bed, so she slowly and quietly reached for her phone and dialed 911 and whispered to the dispatcher that she thinks there is someone in her apartment and that she thinks they are under her bed. The dispatcher told her to remain calm and stay on the line until officers arrived. Once the officers arrived, Lisa jumped up and ran to the door to let the officers in and stood in the hallway as two officers made their way to her bedroom. After a few moments, she heard the officers shout, "Come out with your hands up." A man crawled out from under Lisa's bed, holding one of Lisa's kitchen knives. He had most likely entered her apartment earlier that evening, most probably climbed through a window and waited under Lisa's bed for her to come home. The man was arrested and identified as a homeless man and an ex-convict, with a history of breaking into homes and watching women sleep. Lisa later learned that he had taken a few of her belongings, such as her hairbrush, a pair of her underwear, and some photos, that he stuffed in his backpack. Lisa decided to never spend another night in that apartment again. Story number two, The Dog Door Intruder. In early February 2024, in Florida, Tampa Bay, a woman in her 30s started noticing strange things in her house, such as cans of food disappearing from the pantry. She noticed the back door, which led to a fenced backyard, was sometimes standing open, and her small dog, a terrier mix, refused to go to the laundry room, which was unusual. At first, she assumed she was forgetting to lock up properly. But over the next 2 weeks, her dog grew more anxious, barking at the laundry room at night and whining and scratching at her bedroom door to be let in. She began to feel uneasy, but she thought that it could maybe be an animal coming in. One day she noticed muddy footprints near the dog door in the kitchen. So that night she decided to put up two motion activated security cameras, with one pointing at the dog door and one aimed down the hallway towards the kitchen. The next morning, she checked the footage and saw something that made her blood run cold. At around 3:12 a.m., she saw a man outside the sliding door, and she saw how he crouched down and crawled through the dog door. He then moved calmly to the kitchen and opened the kitchen cabinets and ate a snack. He then walked around the living room and stopped to look down the hallway towards her bedroom. And about 20 minutes later, he slipped back out the dog door. She then called Tampa PD and immediately showed him the footage. So the police began to do extra patrols in the area. And they advised her to secure all entrances, and the officers believed that the man had been entering her house for multiple times for several weeks. 2 nights later, around 2:45 a.m., the man tried to crawl through the dog door again, but was tackled and arrested by two police officers. The woman later found out that the man was homeless and that he just wanted food and a warm place to sit. And the reason why he chose her place was because he knew her dog door was never locked, and he also knew her work schedule. The woman has now installed a reinforced dog door and she now has an alarm system. Story number 3, The Silent Intruder. In late 2008, a woman was living alone in a single-story house in Seattle that she recently had moved into and was adjusting to living alone. She started noticing small things such as food that went missing, especially yogurt and fruit juice. She also started to notice the toilet seat was left up, and some of her belongings were not where she left them. She thought that she was just maybe tired and that maybe she left the fridge door open and forgot. One evening she heard a thump and footsteps, and another time she was sure she saw a shadow moving across the hallway. She had a dreadful feeling like she was being watched. In order to put her fears to rest, she set up a webcam that connected to her laptop and set it pointing towards the kitchen and living room. When she left for work the next morning, she turned the webcam to record. That night when she got home, she checked the camera footage. What she saw in the footage terrified her. She saw a man emerge from a small square hatch in the ceiling as he quietly climbed down onto the counter and dropped to the floor. She watched him move through the house as if he had done it many times before. She watched him open the fridge and drink juice directly from the container. She even saw how he sat on her couch watching TV at low volume. And after about an hour, he climbed back up into the attic and closed the hatch behind him. After watching the footage, she then immediately called 911. And as the police arrived, they searched the crawl space and found a thin foam pad and blanket, a small stash of snacks, plastic bottles for water, and a backpack with some clothing in. The officer told the lady that the crawl space was just big enough for someone to lie down in. So the police waited at the house for the man to emerge. And later that night, the man climbed down and the police arrested him. And according to the police, he was a homeless man in his early 30s and was mentally ill. That'll be it for today's stories. Please like and subscribe. And if there are any stories you would like to hear about, please leave it in the comments below. Thanks for watching and I will see you next time.